Okay, we're in Genesis 42 today. Now, I don't have as many verses to read as last week, but I still got 30-something, 36, I think. So we need to get right into it. Okay, now let's set the story up of what happened. Remember what happened last week? He's in prison. Joseph is in prison. He has these dreams, or he doesn't have dreams. Pharaoh has dreams, and Joseph interprets those dreams. And consequently, because he interprets those dreams, he ends up being taken out of prison. He's put second in command. He gets married, they have a couple of kids, and he oversees the projects for the 7 years of plenty. So it's going to be 7 years of plenty, so they build these big grain elevators, and they store grain for 7 years because they know 7 years of famine are coming. So as we come to chapter 42, those 7 years of famine are here, and things are starting to get bad around the world. So as we see in verse number 1, it says, when Jacob learned that there was grain for sale in Egypt, he said to his sons, why did you look at one another? That's such a fatherly thing to say. Like, would you guys do something? Well, why do you look at one another? And he said, behold, I have heard that there is grain for sale in Egypt. Go down and buy grain for us there that we may live and not die. So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. But Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with his brothers, for he feared that harm might happen to him. Thus the sons of Israel came to buy among the others who came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. So he sends these 10 boys to Egypt to get grain, except for Benjamin, who is Joseph's brother. Remember, his mother's name was Rachel, and Rachel has passed away. She passed away giving birth to Benjamin. So he has this strong tie to Benjamin because he thinks that Joseph is dead, and he doesn't want Benjamin to die too, so he keeps him at home. Verse 6, now Joseph was governor over the land. He was the one who sold to all the people of the land, and Joseph's brothers came and bowed themselves before him with their faces to the ground. Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them, and he treated them like strangers and spoke roughly to them. Where do you come from, he said. They said, from the land of Canaan to buy food. And Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. Now you say, how in the world would they not recognize him? How would they not recognize their brother? Well, when they sold him into slavery, he was 16, 17. Okay? All of Joseph's brothers probably had beards and big beards, You didn't have Walgreens, there wasn't shaving solution, and you had hair, you didn't have hair, and a lot of times you just let it grow. Well, if you're an Egyptian, in particular, if you're in leadership position in Egypt, remember what happened when he brought him out of prison? They said they cleaned him up. They shaved him, and they brought him before Pharaoh. So he's been shaved. He's now 38, 39 maybe. He's been shaved. He wears a hat. I can't tell you how many times when I was working FedEx and I wore a hat every day, and I'd walk right by a lot of you because you didn't recognize me because I had a hat on, So he put a hat on. So he's shaven, hat on, and it's not a ball cap. It's like big, And he has a fake goatee. Okay, they would wear a fake goatee. So they don't recognize him, but he recognizes them. Now, when he sees him, it says in verse 9, Joseph remembered the dreams that he had dreamed of them, and he said to them, you are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land. They said to him, no, my lord, your servants have come to buy food. We are all sons of one man. We are honest men. Yes, exactly the reaction you should have right there, right? Because immediately when he said that, do you think Joseph went, really? Really? Because we know they're not honest men, right? Because they lied to their dad about Joseph. They lied to that city that they went into, and remember that they wanted to intermingle. They raped Dinah, and then they wanted to intermingle with them. They decided that, hey, we'd really like for us to marry to each other. And so Levi and Simeon said, I tell you what, this is what we'll do. You guys all get circumcised, and then we'll make an agreement. And it says the third day after they were circumcised, Levi and Simeon went in and wiped the whole town out. So they lied there. That's a pretty big lie. Because not only did he lie, he committed murder. So to stand up here and go, well, we're good guys. We're honest men. They're not honest guys. And Joseph knows this. He says, your servants have never been spies, which may be true. Verse 12. He said to them, no, it is the nakedness. Joseph said, no, it's the nakedness of the land that you have come to see. And they said, we, your servants, are 12 brothers, the son of one man in the land of Canaan. Behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is no more. But Joseph said to them, it is as I said to you, you are spies. By this you shall be tested. By the life of Pharaoh, you shall not go from this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you and let them bring your brother while you remain confined, that your words may be tested whether this is true in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies. And he put them all together in custody for 3 days. On the third day, Joseph said to them, do this and you will live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers remain confined where you are in custody, and let the rest go and carry grain for the famine of your household. And bring your youngest brother to me. So your words will be verified, and you shall not die. And they did so. They said to one another. Now listen, so Joseph is speaking in Egyptian language. They're speaking in their language. So Joseph's smart guys learned a new language. This is what he's communicating with. So this is kind of keeping the show on too, because he's going through an interpreter. So they start talking amongst themselves. Listen to what they say. In truth, we are guilty concerning our brother, in that we saw the distress of his soul when he begged us, and we did not listen. That is why this distress has come upon us. And Reuben answered them, did I not tell you not to sin against the boy, but you did not listen, so now there comes a reckoning for his blood. So they're all saying this in front of Joseph. They don't think that he can understand their language, but he hears everything they're saying. And it says, verse 23, I guess I could have just read the verse. They did not know that Joseph understood them, for there was an interpreter between them. Then he turned away from them and wept. And he returned to them and spoke to them, and he took Simeon from them and bound him before their eyes. Now remember, Simeon's not the firstborn. Simeon was born second. It's ironic that he put Simeon in jail. And a lot of people believe that he did this because Simeon was the meanest of them. In fact, Jacob will say this about Simeon. He'll talk about how mean he is. He was the one that came up with the whole plan to murder the whole city. He was probably the one that came up with the plan to have Joseph sold into slavery or kill him. So he takes him and puts him into prison. It says, verse 25, and Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, and to replace every man's money in his sack, and to give them provision for their journey. This was done for them. Then they loaded their donkeys with their grain and departed. And as one of them opened his sack to give his donkey fodder at the lodging place, he saw his money in the mouth of his sack. So it'd just be like you go to get a loan on a car. You go to buy a car. You buy a car. You get a loan. Then you get in your car, and there's a check to pay off the loan. That'd be a sweet deal. Would it not? Okay. I think it would, but I'm a car guy, so. Anyway, you buy a house. You go inside. There's a check to pay. This is what's happening here. They're getting free grain, and their money's back in there. Let's see how they respond to that. At this, their hearts failed them, and they turned trembling to one another and says, what is this that God has done to us? So they see this blessing as a curse. That God's cursed us by giving us our money back, which is a weird take. Verse 29, when they came to Jacob, their father, in the land of Canaan, they told him all that had happened to them, saying, the man, the Lord of the land, spoke roughly to us and took us to be spies of the land. But we said to him, we are honest men. We have never been spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father. One is no more, and the youngest is this day with our father in the land of Canaan. Then the man, the Lord of the land, said to us, by this I shall know that you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers with me. Take grain for the famine of your household and go your way. Bring your youngest brother to me. Then I shall know that you are not spies, but honest men, and I will deliver your brothers to you, and you shall trade in the land. As they emptied their sacks, behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when they and their father saw the bundles of money, they were afraid. And Jacob, their father, said to them, you have bereaved me of my children. Joseph is no more, and Simeon is no more, and now you would take Benjamin. All has come against me. Now Reuben, who is the firstborn, speaks up, and he says, and this is a weird statement too to me. He says, kill my 2 sons if I do not bring him back to you. Put him in my hands and I will bring him back to you. What dad's going to do that? Okay, well, Benjamin didn't come back. I'm killing your kids. But I think what he's trying to do is get him to understand how significant this is. This is like, we cannot go back without Benjamin. He made it very clear. Verse 38. But he said, my son, Benjamin, shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is the only one left. If harm should happen to him on the journey that you are to make, you would bring my gray hairs with sorrow to Sheol or to the grave. I'd like to talk to you today about something. I'd like to talk to you about something. I'd like to talk to you about, have you dealt with your past? What I read when I read Genesis 42 is I see a great contrast between Joseph and his brothers. There's this great contrast between these groups of guys and this guy, Joseph. One appears to be very emotionally healthy. The boys, the 10 others, are not. They're not emotionally healthy at all. And it's often a byproduct of what has happened to us in our past. You know, we read Joseph being second in command and we think this guy's got it made. But let's all be honest. None of us would want Joseph's life up to this point. Joseph's had a rough life. First of all, he had a dad who I would say overprotected him or spoiled him. And like I would say to the parents in the room, it's a good idea to take care of your kids, but be careful about spoiling them. You're doing more harm for them than good. So take care of your kids, but don't spoil them rotten. That's the job of the grandparents to do that. That is not your job to do that. Your job is to train them up, and then it's grandparents need to be good grandparents too. But the point is this: he grew up with parents with a dad who spoiled him. He grew up in a very dysfunctional home. His brothers hated him. He also grew up without really his mother. His mom died when he was a young boy giving birth to Benjamin. So he's died without his mom, which would be rough to deal with. Then his own brothers want to kill him and then sell him into slavery. They do sell him into slavery, where he becomes a slave for Potiphar, but then he advances to where he's running Potiphar's house, only to be falsely accused by Potiphar's wife and to be thrown into jail. Then in jail, he rises to where he's running the jail. He interprets a couple of dreams, but these people forget him. My point is this: this is all before the age of 30. Now, we would look at Joseph and go, if you were bitter, I would understand. But he's not bitter, and he's not angry, and he's not resentful. You see it by how he communicates. Even though he had all of these wrong things, these bad things happen to him by his own family in some instances. The brothers also have a history. They have made a lot of mistakes in the past, and they did murder a town. They were very brutal to Joseph. So all of us have a past. That's what I want to really, for you to think about today, that all of us have a past. We either have had a bad past because of what other people have done to us, or in some instances, what we have done to others. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of parents that I know whose kids are out of their house now, and there's a lot of parents that carry a lot of guilt. I wasn't the kind of parent I should have been. I valued the wrong stuff too much. I spoke in a way I shouldn't have. And man, guilt is such a heavy burden to carry. But we look back at our past and we say, I wasn't a believer, or I wasn't following God, and I was making some horrible mistakes. And so we look back with our past. Or maybe we had terrible things happen to us in the past by other people. We all deal with our past different. Some choose to ignore it. What past? I don't know what you're talking about. Like you try to talk to somebody about their upbringing or what's happened to them, and they just try to ignore it, like they don't want to talk about it. Some people choose to minimize it. Well, yeah, it was really bad, but I'm doing okay now. I think you would be shocked if you knew what has happened in the life of the person sitting in the row in front of you or behind you. The more I get to know people, the more I'm absolutely blown away by people's lives when they really open up. This happened to me when I was a kid. This happened to me when I was at this job. This happened to me at this place. And it's like, what? So some people choose to minimize. Well, it's not really that big a deal. And then some people choose to suppress it. They just don't want to talk about it at all. The truth is we need to deal with it. We have to deal with our past. Because if we refuse to deal with our past, we will not be emotionally healthy in the moment today. Because our past stays with us if we do not deal with it. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, because I think you see this great contrast. I think you have this man, Joseph, who has dealt with his past. He's had horrible things happen to him, but yet he deals with it in the correct way, and so he's emotionally healthy today. You see these bunch of 10 guys who have not dealt with their past, who are emotionally unhealthy today. So there are some signs that we can look at that really give us an indication of who's emotionally healthy in this chapter and who's not. So you all understand the premise? Okay, good. Okay, good. 3 of you. That's great to know. The rest of you, hang on. I think you'll understand it as we get deeper in. So how do we know that Joseph dealt with his past? So let's start with the positive, then we'll get to the negative. How do we know that Joseph dealt with his past? Number 1, he remembered his dreams, not his nightmares. He remembered his dreams, not his nightmares. We see that in verses 8 and 9. So his brothers come in, and he's like, oh, I know who these guys are. Now, what was the last time that he saw them? The last time he saw them, he was begging for his life. Remember, he told him, please, he actually, when he's telling the story to Pharaoh, he's talking about how I was begging them, please don't sell me into slavery. Please, please, please. He's begging them. He's pleading for his life, and they sold him anyway. So that's the last time he saw him. So now he's had 20 plus years to think about this. And then he sees him walk through the door. And to say he could get triggered would be an understatement. But what does he think about? He doesn't think about, oh, they hear, it's on, like Donkey Kong, right? It's on. He didn't think that. You know what he thought of when he watched them come in and bow down before him? He thought of the dreams he had when he was a kid. So you know what that teaches me? He wasn't thinking about revenge. He wasn't filled with bitterness. He wasn't filled with anger. When he saw them bow, he remembered his dreams. So he's emotionally in a good, healthy place. He's not making decisions based upon anger and bitterness and resentment. We believe also that he's in a healthy place, too, because he pursued truth, not vengeance. He pursued truth, not vengeance. A lot of people have issues with how Joseph treated his brothers. Like they're like, man, he's talking really rough to them. Well, look. He's doing this, one, because he doesn't know if Benjamin's alive or not. Like he can count. So he knows Benjamin is his brother. Have they killed Benjamin like they tried to kill me? Where's Benjamin? So he uses this case of, look, I think you guys are spies. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I do think that he is making a case for, I'm going to kill you all because you're spies if you've killed my brother, in a sense. Now, remember, Egypt is not a democracy. Okay? Like they didn't vote Joseph in. Pharaoh he ruled the place, and he appointed Joseph over the kingdom. So Joseph could kill these guys to begin with. And he would just say, it would just be his word. Well, these guys are spies, so I want them executed. But he doesn't want to kill. So he's not making decisions based on vengeance. He's really questioning them so intently because he wants to know the truth. And when you are speaking the truth, When you know you're saying the truth, you're not scared about the answer. You're kind of prodding. So as on the one side, the brothers shouldn't have been so anxious if they're telling the truth. And Joseph is pursuing the truth. So their answers like, we're good guys, sent off warning signs in his head. So, but he's not wanting to punish him. He's not wanting vengeance. He just wants to know the truth about his dad and his brothers. The third thing is he had a tender heart. The reason why we believe that he was in a good place emotionally, the reason why I believe he's in a good place emotionally is he has a tender heart. You're going to see that this is not the only chapter he cries in. I love the heart, the tender heart of little kids. I do love it. You know, we have 4 grandkids. Yesterday, Burke and Finn played their last soccer game of the season. And you know, one of the kids love about soccer is not playing soccer, but the treats at the end. Correct? So Burke they got a juice box, and they got what's those things called that they eat? The fruit things, the fruit snacks, is that what they're called? What's the ones that squirt where it's Gushers? I have a total brain freeze when it comes to Gushers. I couldn't do it in the first hour. I'm going to have to write it in my notes, Gushers. So she got a Gushers. I'm going to say it first so I'll remember it. Gushers, and then this bottle of apple, or not bottle, but little thing of apple juice. Well, she's messing with, Burke and Finn are messing with my son Cameron, their uncle. They're kind of messing around. And Cameron steps back and steps on her juice box. And it like explodes. Boom! And I look down and Burke's head drops. And the biggest tears I've ever seen. Yeah. And I looked at Cameron, I'm like, you jerk. No, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. Big old tears streaming down her face. And I'm like, Burke, it's okay. There's other juice boxes. Pop will get you a juice box. Cam didn't mean it. It was an accident. She cried. So I walked to the car with her with my arm around her all the way to the car, you know, trying to console her. And she's, you know. So we get to the car and she's like, do you think my Gushers are squashed too? So we opened the Gushers. Gushers were saved from Cameron's foot. What is that as a 6-year-old? That's just a tender heart, man. Right? And don't you love it? What happens to us, though, as we get older? If the worst thing that ever happens to Burke in her life is somebody steps on her juice box, what a life, right? But we know that what is ahead for Burke is a life of misery and hardship. Be encouraged, my brothers and sisters. So what happens to us? We cry over juice boxes, and then we grow older and we realize, oh, that's a stupid thing to cry over. You know, life's hard. But then what happens to our heart, though? It gets really hard. And especially us guys, man. We're like, we don't cry. Like, we'll literally cut our arm almost off. It'll be hanging. I just need a Band-Aid. Right? Grit our teeth. And we do this emotionally. People hurt us. And we're like, I'm good. How you doing, man? I'm good. I'm good. Good. And our hearts get hard. Let me just say something, men. It's okay to weep. The most manly man that ever walked the earth was Jesus Christ. And it says, Jesus wept. And why did Jesus weep? Because he had a tender heart. Keep your heart tender. Be careful about letting it become hard. And here's this guy who's had all of these horrible things happen to him. And yet when he sees his brothers again, he doesn't think revenge. He hears them talk amongst themselves, and they talk about how we shouldn't have done this to Joseph. And he hears the anguish in their heart. And what does that do to him? It brings a tear to his eye. I wish you guys wouldn't live like that. God's really worked out some really good things here. You see his heart? That's a guy who's dealt with his past. And then number 4, he was kind to the unkind. He was kind to the unkind. So if I'm Joseph and my brothers have done what they've done to me, I'm like, well, give them some grain, but give them the worst grain. Give them the bottom of the barrel. But not only does he give them good grain, but he gives them their money back. And not only does he give them their money back, but he probably took it out of his bank account to give them their money back. He probably paid for the grain himself. Like, this is for, I want to take care of my brothers. I want to take care of my dad. This is my money. These guys have been nothing but unkind to him, but he returns it in kind. Another sign that he did not hold a grudge, that he was emotionally healthy, is that he put the money back in their sacks. He used his own money to pay for their grain. He refuses to treat them like they treated him. It isn't that what Jesus told us? This is why Joseph's such a picture of Jesus Christ. Because this is what Jesus did. Jesus treated people not how they treated him, but how they needed to be treated. So I would look at the life of Joseph and say, this is an emotionally healthy guy. Now, the brothers were a totally different story. So how do we know that Joseph's brothers had not dealt with their past? 1, they were defensive. They were defensive. When Joseph accuses them and says, you guys are spies, like, I want to tell you right now, I don't know if you guys have ever flown to Israel before, if you've ever gone to Israel. It is not like going in any other country. And I know you're probably not flying there right now, but if you've ever been and you get there, most countries you go into, they, hey, what are you here for? Where's your passport? Sometimes they don't even ask you. They just take your passport, they stamp it. You go to Israel, man, they want to know why you're here, where you're going, who your guide is, what hotel are you staying at, do you have their phone number? Do you know? I mean, they grill you, and it gets really intimidating. It's like, because that pressure, like standing before a judge, and it's a lot of what it's like. Well, if you're speaking the truth, you don't have anything to hide, and they do that because they want to see whether you lie. Are you here as a spy? Are you here to cause trouble? Why are you here? They don't say that, but they say it by how they pressure you with the questions. Well, if I'm standing before a judge, or if I'm standing before a government official, and they're like, are you a Russian spy? I'm not a Russian spy. I guarantee you I'm not a Russian spy. I can say that with complete confidence, that I'm not a Russian spy. I don't have to be defensive if I'm telling you the truth. They're being defensive because what are they doing? Well, we're good men. We're honest men. You're lying. People that have to tell you, if people have to tell you I'm a hard worker, they're not hard workers. I'm a hard worker. I'm a hard worker. Hey, I'm the hardest worker here. No, you're not. Because if you have to consistently tell me you're the hardest worker, you should be able to just show it by how hard you work. If I'm really a good guy, then it will be shown in my life, not in my words. Actions speak louder than words. So when people kind of say, hey, I don't think you're a hard worker. Well, I'm a hard worker. When we get defensive, it shows that we're not telling the truth. And that's what's happening here. They were defensive. They were trying to convince people that they were something they were not. These are not good guys. What person who sells their brother into slavery, you say, that's a good guy. You take a defenseless town and you murder the entire town. What individual in this room would look at those people and say, those are good guys, those are honest men? But they're defensive. And we get the same way when we have not dealt with our past. We get defensive. Well, I was a good dad. Number 2, they misunderstood suffering. So what is their whole conversation? Their whole conversation is, hey, this is all happening to us because of what we did to Joseph. That is a basic misunderstanding of suffering. You know what that's called? That's a worldly philosophy called karma. So the world will say, when bad things happen to me, well, this is karma. I'm getting karma. Okay, karma is not a biblical term. You won't find karma in the Bible. because this is the case. Here's some truths about suffering. It is naive to think, number one, that you will not suffer. You live in a broken world. Okay? So you cannot expect perfection. You live in a broken world. You're a broken individual. So broken people hurt people. What's the old saying? Hurt people hurt people. So broken, you're going to get broken because you live in a broken world, and it's naive of you to think, I'm never going to suffer. I'm in the family of God, I'm never going to suffer. That is also something that is naive to believe, because not all suffering has to do with something you did wrong. There was a blind guy was sitting by a gate, and Jesus and the disciples walked by, and one of the disciples goes, hey, why is that guy blind? Did he sin or did his parents sin? And Jesus said, neither one of them. That guy was born blind so that I could walk by and heal him and God could be glorified. So that his suffering had nothing to do with him or his family. He wasn't reaping the sins of his parents. It was just an opportunity for Jesus to heal him and then for him to give God the glory. And the truth is this: if you are suffering because you are reaping what you've sown, it's usually easy to identify. Like if you woke up today with a headache, but you drank too much last night, we can get to the source. Right? Most of us know why we're at B, but we did A that got us to B. So it's not hard to connect the dots in life. And these guys, though, think that suffering is this generic thing that happens because we did bad things a long time ago. Now, you can reap what you sow, but I would argue this: God often doesn't allow us to suffer as much as we should in so many ways. God shows us so much. There's a thing called common grace, which is he's not showing you grace because you're a good guy. He's just, God's a good God, God's a gracious God, and he doesn't give you what you deserve. These guys misunderstand suffering. Number 3, they blamed others. They blamed others. This is how you know they haven't dealt with their past. They blamed others. So they start to arguing amongst each other, and they're like, this is all happened to us because of what we did to Joseph. And then Reuben's like, well, I didn't want to do it. So what's going on here? He's blaming others. And this is what happens to us a lot of times. A sign that we have not dealt with our past is we blame the people in the past, or we blame the events in the past. Well, I'm a mess today because my dad wasn't a good dad, okay? There's an unwillingness on your part to take any responsibility. It's just your father's fault or your mother's fault. And I'm not saying that what your mother or father did was right or good, but it's like this warning sign flashing. If I'm constantly blaming other people, then it's a sign that I haven't dealt with whatever happened back here. Like Karen and I live up north, and I don't know if you've gone north lately, but it is a nightmare up there, okay? Because one of the things we've loved about Topeka all the years we've lived here is, man, you could be anywhere in this town in 15 minutes, including our house. Now it could be 15 minutes. It could be 45. Right? You don't know. And with the road construction in general, correct? Okay, so I know that traffic's up there. So I can't say, hey, I'm going to meet you at the Starbucks up north at 5 o'clock and leave the church here at 4:45. I've got to do something I've never had to do here, which is give myself margin. Like 30 minutes of margin. Okay, I'm going to leave at 4:20 because I got to meet this guy at 5 because I may hit some traffic. But if I leave at 4:45 and I get there at 5:20 and I go, you know what? That stupid KDOT. When I knew that was up there, yet I want to blame. That's what we do in life. When we haven't dealt with our past, we tend to blame. It's this person's fault, it's that person's fault. And this is what the brothers are doing. They're blaming one another. And 4, they were miserable. They were miserable. Look, I know that life is hard, and I know some of you have had some horrible things happen to you. Please don't misunderstand what I'm about to say. But man, when you get right with God, when you get saved and you become a part of the family of God, there should be a joy. And some of the most miserable people I meet say they love Jesus. And it's like, why? And it's just this big warning sign. There's stuff in my past and I haven't dealt with it, and I can't enjoy anything good in life today. You ever met somebody that could find the negative in every positive? I was driving by coming in today, and I think the Powerball or something was like 400. And I'll never win the lottery because you have to play the lottery to win the lottery. But let's say hypothetically I played the lottery. I had this moment of weakness and I walked in and said, I'll take a lottery ticket, So I buy this lottery ticket, and let's say I win the 400 million. Okay. If I'm miserable in life, I'd be like, well, I got to pay 200 million in taxes. Right? Well, let's try to live off the 200 million we got left. I mean, there's just people that just find the negatives in everything. And this is the brothers. They got their money back in their sack, and they're like, oh, God's judging us. What? He just put money in. If I went to my bank account, because I check my bank account every day to see if my $500 are still in there, but I check, so I check. If my bank account went from 500 to 50,000, I would be like, let's go, right? I wouldn't think I'd be like, oh man, this is terrible. God's judging me. But that's a sign that there's issues in the past. So I'm way over. So let me give you a couple of points here. This is the whole point of the sermon. What's the best way to deal with our past? 2 things. And this is oversimplification, but man, it's a good place to start. Confess and forgive. So look, if you're miserable today because of what you've done in the past, maybe every time you get around your kids, you feel guilt. I was a horrible parent. And you just feel this guilt. You know what would help you? Confession. It'd be good to take your kids out to coffee one day and sit down with them and go, look, I know I made some mistakes as a parent. Would you forgive me? Confess it. But see, we don't do that, do we? I didn't do anything wrong. We're very stubborn people, man, and we deal our heels in, dig our heels in. We stand our ground. No, you're wrong. You're wrong. No, I'm wrong. Proverbs 28:13 is one of my favorite verses in the Bible. Whoever conceals his transgression will not prosper, but he who confesses and forsakes them will obtain mercy. So confession is the first thing. So when I look back at my past, and I do look back at my past a lot, and there are times where I wish I was a better dad. I'm blessed with 3 great kids, but there's times where that, if I'm being honest, this church was too important to me. I did put sometimes the ministry above my own children. Now, God has been gracious to me, and they all love the Lord, and they're still involved in the church. But I've made mistakes, and when I'm confronted with those mistakes, I try to be honest with them and confess my sins to them and say, look, I was wrong. But this is the thing about confession. Man, it has to happen all the time. Because what are the 6 hardest words in the English language? I was wrong. Please forgive me. That's hard for me to say to Karen, because it's usually Karen's fault. You know that's satire, right? That's a joke. It's a ha-ha. But man, for our marriage to be healthy, like, I got to confess my sin to her. Like, look, I shouldn't have talked that way to you. I'm sorry. Then the flip side of that is if you are living a life that's a byproduct of people have done you wrong, you have to forgive them. And I know nobody wants to hear this. Nobody wants to hear it. You all are going, la, 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 la. But Jesus taught it. Matthew 18:21, Peter came to him and said, Lord, how often will my brother sin against me and I forgive him? As many as 7 times? Now, Peter thought he was being a big guy here because in Jewish culture, it was said that somebody could commit the same sin against you 3 times and you were to forgive them 3 times, but that 4th time, you didn't have to forgive them. So Peter doubles it and adds 1. And he's thinking, boy, Jesus is going to think I'm super spiritual, man. 7 times, and this is what Jesus said back. He says, no, Peter, I did not say to you 7 times, but 70 times 7. Does that mean 490? So you keep a lodge, you keep a record. 1, 2, 3, 4, 409, 491. Don't have to forgive you. Is that what he's saying? No, he's talking about an infinite amount of times. So what do we have to do? We have to forgive over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. See, and that's what I think Joseph did. I think Joseph woke up in the morning and maybe he's walking somewhere and he sees this guy and it looks like Simeon. Isn't it amazing how incredible your brain is? I can walk in a grocery store or I can walk in a store like Macy's or Dillard's and I can smell a perfume and it will remind me of a girl I dated in high school. Right? I'm like, I ain't thought of her in 40 years. At least that's what I tell Karen, right? That I ain't thought of her in... But you walk in and you're like, oh man, that reminds me of so-and-so's perfume, you know? And it's like, and then man, here come the memories. You ever looked at something and it's like, and look, I've lived in this city most of my life. I have a lot of memories here. I have a ton of memories. It's not a big city, so you can make a lot of memories here. And there's a lot of places you got to drive by them. You can't avoid them. So I drive by a house and I have memories. And not all of them are good. And not everything that's happened in my life has been a good thing. And so I have to say, I remember what happened there, but I forgive them. See, forgiveness is something we got to do all the time. That's why Jesus said when he taught us to pray, forgive us our debts as we forgive those who have sinned against us. It's something we got to do all the time. We got to do it daily, if not hourly. Like you got to forgive me for preaching too long and your roast is burning at home or whatever's going on. Like you got to forgive me. And isn't that how we're saved? We're all saved. See, I believe most of you came in this room today because you love Jesus and you want to worship him, but maybe there's some of you that came in this room today because you're trying to get right with God and you think religion's the way. You think going to church is the way. See, that's not the way. Most of the people are here are not here because they're trying to get right with God. They're here because they're right with God and they want to publicly worship him. So that's what church is about. We come here, we want to learn the Word of God, we want to worship Jesus publicly, we want to take communion together, we want to fellowship with other Christians, but we're not here to try to get saved because we can get saved anywhere, but it has to start with confession. It has to start with me acknowledging that I was made by God and I have spent my life living in rebellion to God. Yeah, I've read the 10 Commandments, but you know what? I've broken all of them. I've broken all of them. In some form. I've never murdered anybody, but you know what Jesus said? You got hate in your heart towards somebody, you've started the process. Whoops. I don't even want to get to the coveting part. I've broken them all. So the problem is, if I've broken one sin, I can't get to heaven. That forfeits me going to heaven. So what do I have to do to go to heaven? I have to confess my sin to God, not to a man, to God. God, I have sinned against you and am unworthy of your love and your grace. I know I do not deserve heaven, but I believe that Jesus came and took the price for me, paid the price for me on the cross. It begins with confession. And this is the amazing thing about God. 1 John 1:9. If we confess our sins, God doesn't sit up there and go, let me think about it a while. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. I'm not going to heaven because of any good work I've done. The only reason why I'm going to heaven is because of what Jesus has done, and I have thrown myself on the mercy of Jesus. I have confessed my sins and asked him to save me, and that's how you're saved. I really preached this sermon today, not because I wanted to stir up old memories, but because I want you to live a good life. Guilt is such a horrible burden to carry. Anger, resentment, bitterness, hatred is such a horrible life to live. And you can fake it, man. You can laugh real loud, and you can do all this stuff that everybody thinks you're the happiest guy in the room, but you know your heart. And so it just comes through saying simple words like, I forgive them. Or looking somebody in the face and saying, I am sorry. How can we deal with our past? Confess and forgive. Let's be like Joseph, man. Let's live, let's enjoy life, but we can only enjoy the moment if we deal with the past. If we deal with the past, we can go forward with faith. Okay? Let's go to the Lord in prayer. I know it's a long sermon today, but I don't care. I don't care because this is the most important thing we'll talk about here is what are you doing to prepare yourself for what happens after death? Death is appointed a man wants to die. We're all going to stand before God. Are you ready for that? Or have you spent your life trying to earn your own way, find your own way? I just want to beg you this morning to confess, acknowledge your sin to God and ask him to save you through Jesus Christ. If you've never done that, man, today'd be a great day to do it. Just pray a simple prayer like this. God, I know I'm a sinner. And I know that I deserve to be separated from you forever. I'm sorry for my sin. I believe in Jesus. I believe he died for my sins and rose again. Please come in my life, God, and make me a new person. Thank you for saving me. Maybe in just a moment of silence, maybe you are saved. You know heaven's your home, but you haven't dealt with your past. You haven't even started the journey at all. You're angry, you're bitter, you're resentful towards what that person. Maybe you just start the process today by saying, I forgive blank. You got to get right with God before you get right with others. Or I'm sorry. Lord God, I'm sorry for the things that I've done in the past that I know have hurt other people. If you cry it out, God will hear you. Thank you, God, for being a loving, kind, gracious God. Thank you for giving us hope when we really deserve no hope. Lord, I always feel like sermons like this are heavy and it makes people think. It makes us think about stuff maybe we haven't thought about or don't want to think about. But Lord, I long for myself and all the people in this room to live a life and live it abundantly. So I pray, Lord, that you would give the people in this room the courage to deal with their past. Maybe that means going to a counselor that'll help them walk through that. But may they start the process today, Lord. May they start it today by just saying simple words like, I forgive or I'm sorry. Thank you for the grace you've shown us. May we show others the same grace. We pray this in your name, Jesus. Amen.